Hello and welcome to the Duluth News Tribune's Bulldog Insider Podcast. I am your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the News Tribune.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
The Bulldogs 2025-2026 season is officially over. It was a long season. This is our Season 8 finale of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. The men's season came to a close via a 4-3 loss to Michigan in an NCAA Tournament regional final in Albany, New York. The women's season ended a few weeks ago in the opening round of the NCAA Tournament, losing to Yale in Columbus. Joining Zach and I to break down the season and look ahead to 2026-27 is the voice of UMD Hockey on KDAL. Welcome back, Bruce Ciskie.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always good to be here.
All right, so even before I put the call out, shortly after the season ended, you guys started peppering us with questions you wanted answered for this episode. So we're just going to dive right into them. I know in the past we've done like 2-part season finales where Bruce, Zach, and I break everything down, but I feel like you guys actually covered most of the topics that we normally ask. So we're going to dive right into this. I assembled this in some sort of order. Those of you who submitted more than one question, especially those that submitted 6 or 7, I tried to pick just one of you because I want to get as many of you on here as possible. So Mike on Blue Sky, you get the honor of the first question. At what point of the season did you realize that this season was different than the last few seasons? And all of these questions, I think a lot of them were about the men. A lot of people were excited about how that season went. And I think that's why you guys were already diving into questions here. But if we want to cover the women as well, we can. Less excitement with how that season went. But guys, let's start about the men. At what point did you realize this season was different than the last few seasons? Bruce?
September. And I'm not kidding. Like the first time I went down to the rink in September, you could tell the vibe was different. I could almost go back to June when I went down there and met some of the new guys and chatted with a few of the returning players as well. It just felt different. And it's hard to quantify that. It's hard to verbalize what that means. It just, you could tell, like, I go back to the season prior, and there was a sweep they had of St. Cloud State at home in January. And there was a scrum at the end of the game where I want to say it might have been Dominic James got hit. And Ty Hansen jumped right in. I don't know who it was for St. Cloud, but Ty Hansen jumped right. He couldn't have gotten there quicker. And Craig Krakis and I noticed that on the radio side, and we're like, the freshmen are starting to drive this bus, and the other guys are coming along, and that's exciting when that happens. And it didn't completely come to fruition before that season ended, but you could see it in September. That sophomore group, the Plants, Shagabe, Hansen, Arnott, etc., they're driving the bus now, and everybody else they're on board, and they're bought in. But it started with those guys, and you could see it from the hop.
Yeah, I didn't get to the rink in September, so mine came later once they actually started playing games. But, I mean, they swept at Minnesota. You started to feel, I mean, obviously Minnesota's season from there went the way it went, and it probably doesn't mean as much looking back on it. But at the time, it felt like sweeping at Minnesota was a big step forward. And then the next weekend, when they got the overtime win on Friday night at North Dakota, when they gave up that late lead and then Ty scored in the overtime to win it, you just kind of started to feel like this was a group that was learning how to win. But, you know, this might be a bad answer to this question. It really hit home at the end of the year. Watching them lose that game to Michigan is when it really sunk in. Not only watching them lose in the NCAA tournament compared to the last several years, losing and ending the year in the NCHC tournament, that's a different feeling, but also just the level of, I've been looking for a better word since the year ended to use, but the level of indifference that I had for several years at the end of the season was noticeable with the level of disappointment that I had at the end of this year. These kids made me care about this season. I really wanted it for them to be in Vegas at the Frozen Four. For whatever reason, the last 3 or 4 years at the end of the year, I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, we'll try it again next year. And left and didn't really have too much. It ended the way I expected. This year, it kind of hit like a ton of bricks like it has in the past. And so that was a noticeable difference for me as well from the last 3 or 4 years was the end of the year.
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely in Fairbanks, that first series right away. And I had been around the team in September and such, but I'm a skeptic until I see them play on the ice. And we saw Adam Guyon, sharp as could be in Fairbanks there. And that can be a difficult trip, right? Like it's a long, strange trip to get up to Fairbanks, Alaska. It's a different environment, the time zone, everything. Like that could be a challenging season opener. And they just went up there and they were crisp. You could just tell watching this team, like it was different. You could just tell it was different. There was a different vibe. The vibe when I went down to talk to people in the post game was different. Everything just had a different feel. And I think Zach actually brings up a very good point, how different the end of the season felt. Like it wasn't oh man, I'm glad this is over. like oh good, we're done. Like it wasn't it didn't drag out. You were left wanting more. There was that disappointment of, man, they came up short. Like you didn't feel like, well, they pushed it as far as they did. Like you've had that in previous years, right? Where you're like, well, they went as far. This team went as far as I think they could have. You were left wanting more. So yeah, it was fun to watch this season evolve. It's fun to watch. I think you could tell the end of the season was different too. Like I said, as soon as that season was over, fans are sending in questions, asking about next year. They're asking about, they're hungry to move on to the next season. There is the excitement is back for Bulldog hockey, where in the past, I think there was a bit of all right, we're done. Let's, I'm going to take a break and we'll come back at the start of next year. And people already want, they're hungry for the season to start again. So that's cool to see. Biddy on Blue Sky asked, a struggle down the stretch for UMD was giving up the first goal. In 5 of their last 6 games, they gave up the first goal. Biddy, you actually had 6 games that they gave up the last one, but they actually scored first in that semifinal against North Dakota, and the second, and the third, and the fourth. Or no, it was 3-1. They got
3-0, then 3-1, then 5-1.
They got the first 3. They toasted North Dakota in that game, which again is a whole another difference when we look at this team. But it was a recurring theme all season, them falling behind. Why was this happening? What do you think they'll do to correct this? Or was it just a fluke thing? Bruce, I kind of lead toward this being a bit of a fluke.
Well, I mean, it happened because the other team scored first.
Oh God. Thanks, Max.
The best way to correct that is to score first. That's the simplest answer, right? No, in all seriousness, and yes, I did write that down. That I decided
you had to write that one down?
Because it was Biddy. I decided
couldn't even remember that bad joke.
Oh, you kidding? No. Look at me. I can't remember anything.
The team may have taken a step this year, but Bruce Ciskie remains in his.
I remain the exact same
form
that I've always been. They scored first 20 times and were scored on first 20 times. So it was a 50-50 split over their 40 games. I'm sure they would love it. I'm sure they'll talk about, we got to start games faster. We'll get with these guys in September. They'll talk about, we got to start faster. And I get all that. But there were probably some games in there. I think about the St. Cloud games, where they got scored on first, but I thought they had the better of the play.
Well, I think against Michigan, they were.
And I thought Michigan, they were okay. And they got scored on first because Michigan got a bounce. And those things happen. So I do think that there's some dumb luck thrown in there that makes it more fluky that it happened a lot down the stretch. There was, like, if you go back and look, there were some games in there where they scored first and they were not playing very well. That happens too. So I don't think there's necessarily a big concern. It's just kind of the way that it played out.
Yeah, and I think Michigan doesn't fit into this, but into this concept here. But I mean, this team, especially its top guys, play in a way, and this was frustrating throughout the year, I think. They play in a way that when they make a mistake, sometimes it can be a big mistake. And that happened on the third goal. Right? That Michigan scored. It wasn't the first goal, so it has nothing to do with Biddy's question, but the drop pass turnover from between Ty Hansen and Jason Chagabe, that was a big mistake.
Yeah. And
that turned into a goal.
Yep. It was a telegraphed play, and Ty didn't get enough on the drop.
Yep. And those
it's
are
a mistake.
And those are two of the best players. And so I looked at my wife watching the game on TV, and I shrug and I say, I trust Ty to make that play 100 times out of 100. This time it didn't work out. It wasn't anything other than just the other team's really good too. And he got his pocket picked, but that's the way these guys play. And I think the step forward from those top guys going into next year is how do you take the talent and the creativity that they have and kind of funnel it more towards the Sandlin type system where we limit some of those mistakes leading to odd man rushes the other way. Because a lot of those first goals, the first goals that St. Cloud State scored in the NCHC quarterfinals in Duluth, one was a 2-on-1 one-timer, and I think the other one was an odd man rush as well, both off of neutral zone or offensive zone turnovers. Yep. And so there a lot of the mistakes, almost every mistake they made in that first period against Michigan ended up in their net. And then they battle all the way back, and they almost get all the way back. This team just plays on an edge, and I don't think that's something that you want to take away. I think we've talked to Scott Sandlin throughout the year of, how do you do it? And he goes, I'm not changing those guys. Those guys are really, really good for a reason, and I'm not going to make them caged animals. But we do have to find a way to maybe
it's a happy medium, right?
Limit some of the things going the other way. But you take the good with the bad with some of those guys.
And I said this a lot down the stretch. The top power play unit struggled a lot in the last month and a half of the season. And a big reason why I thought it did was, when they needed to simplify, when they needed to be more direct, it was almost like they hadn't done it. So they didn't, I don't say they don't know how to do it, but it almost looked that way because they didn't, it came so naturally to play the way that they were playing that to change it would have been almost maybe too drastic the other direction. But if you watch the second unit, when they got a puck cleared on them, they very rarely turn the puck over coming up the ice because just the way that they played was different. It wasn't that it was better. It was just different, and maybe it worked better against the way some teams are killing penalties down the stretch.
Yeah, and I will say we said on the broadcast, I think several times throughout the year, there's no way to count this unless I go back and rewatch every game. But in games that were 0-0, how many times did we say, remember that save from Adam Guyon or Ethan Dahlmeyer? Yep. It happened more than once, and then maybe UMD scored the first goal in that game, but they were giving up chances, and their goaltending at times bailed them out and gave them enough time to find their offensive game, and then they ended up winning 3 or 4-1 or whatever it was. And so if that's going to continue, they're going to need more solid goaltending going into next year.
Yeah. Next question comes via nepotism from Hunter Ciskie via text from his dad. What areas of the Dogs game were you most impressed with this year, and what areas of the Dogs game do you think can be most improved before next season? I think we already touched on what needs to be improved, and that's puck protection. Yeah. And we heard Scott talk about it a lot. They did give up too many 2-on-1s. Zach mentioned the shorthanded goal that they gave up. The other killer was the fourth goal to Michigan. I mean, obviously the deciding goal there. Yeah. Again, that was a 2-on-1 that Ty Hansen defended as well as you could, and then there was a bad bounce off his stick as he's outstretched. Kudos again to a really good Michigan team that were able to get around that. But as good as Ty was defending on there, you can't let Michigan have a 2-on-1. You can't give those early breaks to St. Cloud to allow them to take that 2-1 lead. So puck protection there, definitely an area that UMD will need to improve on. And I think that comes with experience. The areas that you were most impressed with this year, I think it was goaltending for UMD for two reasons. Adam Guyon bounced back incredibly well, so much so that he's now heading to the NHL. He got invited to the Slovakian team for the Olympics, even though they didn't play him. He was the number one on that Spengler Cup team against professional teams in Europe. Like, Adam Guyon had an incredible bounce back year for UMD. And then Ethan Dahlmeyer, man, came in while, even before Guyon was gone for the Olympics and played really well. I was impressed with the goaltending. Can it get better? Yes. I think UMD can get better in goal, though. I do feel like we have incredibly high goaltending standards in Duluth, based on everyone that's come through on both the men's and women's sides. I think a lot of programs would be just ecstatic to get the goaltending UMD had this year. So like goaltending is what impressed me the most, because it took such a big jump and just never became really an issue, I think, at any point in the season.
Yeah, and I would also throw in their defensive play. If you look at, I track even strength shots every game, because to me it shows you the flow of the game. You know, who's got the better of the puck, and so I take out all the special team stuff and just look at the even strength numbers. They were way up in terms of shot margin this year, even strength and and overall. Expected goals against, they were way down from last year. They were also way better in terms of goaltending versus expected goals. So that's a nod to Adam Guyon and Ethan Dahlmeyer, but I think their overall number of expected goals against was also down. That's a nod to team defense, puck possession, all those things that I thought were vastly improved and much more consistent this year.
Yeah, piggybacking a little bit off of both of those, I think the most impressed I was with the penalty kill. Because that was a bad unit.
Crazy. Yeah, that's a good point.
A couple years, and they were really, really good. And goaltending obviously has a lot to do with that, defensive play, structure overall. But I mean, holy man.
And discipline, because they're way down in penalties taken this year,
and
which
the penalty
helps.
kill was great. I was also really impressed. Bruce mentioned that the top power play units struggled down the stretch, which they did. The second unit was really good down the stretch.
Yeah.
There's no reason for UMD to finish, as high as they did in the national rankings in the power play without that second unit, because the first unit kind of went through a dry spell, and that second unit, which was much more simple and direct and had a much different style than the top guys, they kind of carried the weight for the last maybe 6-8 games.
Yeah.
And so I was really impressed with that, because we all knew the top power play unit was going to be pretty fun to watch, and the second unit came along. They struggled to start, and then they got much, much better throughout the year.
Yeah, and Cody Chubb talked about it when we visited in October and talked about that top unit with the Plants and Chagabay and Hansen, like they can almost play with their eyes closed, because they know each other so well. And it's different in the second unit, they play differently, and that's okay. You look at the Wild, their top unit with Kaprizov and Boldy and Hughes. They're not the same as the 15 seconds of a power play the second unit gets. The difference is that those guys score a lot more effectively and more consistently than really UMD's top unit did, especially down the stretch.
Eric on Blue Sky. I think the big questions are, do you think anyone signs an NHL contract? And who could you see leaving in the portal? He obviously asked this before Guyon signed a 2-year deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. So that's a yes. And I think we knew Guyon, especially after he gets invited to the Olympics. You're like, this guy's probably going pro. As someone mentioned, he's probably going to be on Slovakia's World Championship team as well coming up here.
And not many guys get to say that they've done Spengler Cup, Olympics, and World Championships in the same hockey season. That's crazy.
Like I think Adam Guyon, by having the season he had, not shocked at all. As I told someone the other day, I hadn't pre-wrote a story on Guyon. I knew he was signing. I probably could have pre-wrote that story in the fall. And we're going to touch on goaltending as someone has a question coming up here. But guys, who else do you think are we watching? We'll start with NHL contracts. First off, I think that speaks to the program that we're talking about NHL contracts right now and early departures, because for a few years there we could just flat out ignore this, minus the never-ending saga of waiting for Dom James to sign a contract last year, which again, Dom was playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. I pre-wrote a story on Dom and it sat for like 6 months. I had to dig. I'm like, where did I write? And I know I wrote this story. But who else do you guys think potentially could sign an NHL contract? We're recording this around 2:00 Central Time on Thursday. So I'm sure something will happen between now and when Dan edits this and posts this. But who else are we looking at? Obviously, Max Plant. From what I'm hearing, the Red Wings are pushing hard for him to sign.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if you're Max Plant, Detroit can't play him now. Not when they're in the spot that they're in, and they're trying to hold on for their season here. I don't know that that's a great
We're not going to turn this into a Detroit Red Wings podcast. If you really want
Adele.
to turn this into a Red Wings podcast, let me know. We'll get my wife Adele on, and she will trash the current state of the Detroit Red Wings as they choke down the stretch here.
I don't know that. I'm very kind of hard line on this. If you're going to leave college early, it should be for an opportunity to play in the NHL. It shouldn't be to go ride buses in the AHL. All due respect to the AHL. Wyatt Kaiser gets an opportunity to play in the NHL right away.
In the AHL now, but
not everywhere.
Not in the Northeast,
right?
Yeah.
And so Kaiser gets the opportunity to go and burn the first year, go play in Chicago. Now he didn't stick there. He had to go back to Rockford, but he got the opportunity at the. To me, that's the minimum thing you should be asking for if you're going to leave college early.
Unless you're a goalie.
Unless you're a goalie. That's the exception because there's only 32 of those. I get that. But to me, if Steve Yzerman's not putting Max Plant in his lineup at some point here down the stretch, and I don't know that he can, I don't know that Max Plant should sign. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to turn pro. All that I'm not saying that he shouldn't. I'm not judging him if he does. I'm just saying I think that's the baseline. And Adam Kleber might be a different story. Believe it or not, Buffalo is safely in the playoffs right now. They could probably afford to say, okay, we'll burn the first year and let you play here down the stretch a little bit.
Yeah, but so 2 points here. Is that worth it for Adam Kleber? And I don't know. Only Adam can decide this.
Exactly.
Because he's probably not going to be in the lineup past that, right?
In the playoffs, or even necessarily starting next season.
Yeah,
we don't know.
I'm just saying into the playoffs, right? Because Buffalo's like opposite from Detroit. Like they're really good. They need to.
Amazing.
Is Adam Kleber going to unseat one of their 6 defensemen
Probably
once they
not.
get to the postseason? Probably not. So do you want to go play a couple games for a team that's already in? It'd be a cool experience. Or do you come back? He was one that through the first maybe 2 months of the season, I thought we might get him for another year because I don't think he was there yet. And then I think even before Christmas, boy, did he get better. And the more we watched him through the second half, Judd Medic and Jason Watt, my color analyst, and I would look at each other and we'd say, he might be gone. I mean, I think he could play in the NHL right now. I just don't know if it's really worth it for him. And then Max is, I like to call it the Jack Connolly problem for Max, because Detroit, as many problems as they have, is Max going to go play in their top 6? Because if he's going to go play on their fourth line, it's not what Max wants to do. Max doesn't want to go beat himself up chasing pucks and forechecking NHL defensemen. It's not his game, right? And so if he can stay another year, play with his brothers, maybe chase a national championship, maybe chase a Hobey Baker, he still maybe is going to win this year's Hobey Baker. He's still in that mix. What's the benefit? You know, I mean, Jack Connolly, I think, made what ended up being a super smart business decision. And again, this is all from me. I haven't necessarily talked to Jack about this in particular, but he decided to go overseas. He said, I'm not running 6'4", 220-pound defenseman for you. I'm going to go play in Sweden where hitting is practically illegal. And I can do what I want to do. And he played over there for like 10, 12 years and had a great career.
I would also throw in on Max Plant. So Carter Mazur left Denver early. Had a great year. And I'm not knocking Carter Mazur for leaving Denver early. So don't mistake that. But Carter Mazur's played 3 NHL games. He got 1 in when he signed. He's played 2 games this year. The last game he played 6.5 minutes on the fourth line. So if that's the future that you're looking at, because Detroit is notorious for overcooking their prospects. And again, for a lot of years, it worked really well for them. Lately, you could argue it hasn't. But for a lot of years, that's how they won Stanley Cups. So it's not like a tremendously wrong thing to be doing, but to me, it also changes the equation. If you're a prospect, how quickly do you want to go sign when I'm looking at all these guys that were good prospects that haven't really gotten a shot yet?
Detroit Red Wings won Stanley Cups because, again, we're trying not to turn this into a Detroit Red Wings podcast, but the Red Wings won Stanley Cups under an old NHL salary cap system where Ken Holland could hand out ridiculously awful contracts Case in point, Justin Abelkader is still on the payroll for the Detroit Red Wings.
Matt likes to remind us of this a lot, which I'm guessing he hears it from his wife all the time.
Whenever I log on to Cap Friendly, Puckpedia, like he's survived multiple iterations of these websites, of these NHL salary cap websites, and I go on those sites because I'm one of the tip offs when you're looking at is a guy going to sign or not, can they go right into the NHL, is how many contracts does a team have available? Detroit actually has like 4 or 5 contracts still available. Buffalo is actually tight. I think they're at 49 out of 50 right now. If I remember last look, like they're tight, and you never want to be that tight if you're a team. But I keep going on there, and there he is, Justin Abelkader, still sitting there, and you're like, my God, Ken Holland. If Ken Holland is the GM and he offers you a contract, you say yes, because you're going to be set for life. I think you guys are like Max Plant. When I look at him, Max Plant and Adam Kleber, I think are ready to go to the NHL. Like the old thing I always hear from coaches is dominate a level and move on. Those two, I think, are ready, but do they want to? And I think both players are in situations where they can ask that question. They can sit there and ask themselves, do I want to go to the NHL yet? Do I want, in Max's case, he's in a very, very unique situation. What do you want to do? Like, this is I would tell both of them, what do you want to do? You can do whatever you want. Like some guys have to sign, like Adam Guyon, no offense, probably had to sign that deal because he's a goaltender. Ryan Fanti had to sign that deal when it was offered to them. Like these two don't have to. Max could come back and play with his brother. Klebs can come back, play with Ty Hansen. Both can probably give themselves some more leverage. Like they can do whatever they want, and that's a great position for both of them to be in.
It's also a lot different, and all three that we're talking about here this year are drafted players, but it's a lot different when you're talking about free agents versus drafted players, because free agents kind of have to go when the getting's good.
Right.
Neil Pionk, Ben Steeves. I go back to what
Jackson
Scott
Cates.
Sandlin has said for years when talking about these guys, which is, do you want a contract or do you want a career?
Yeah.
And guys that sometimes leave chase that first contract. The contract gets dangled out. It's a lot of money we're talking about to play hockey. And some of those guys over the years have not stuck, right? And Rob Bortson is one of those guys to me that had a phenomenal, I believe it was his junior
40-point junior season, 2009-2010.
After like 4 his sophomore year.
Maybe that. Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Out of nowhere.
He got while the getting was good.
Yeah, because he saw the writing on the wall. He saw the Connollys around him. He saw what was coming in. He knew, well, it's going to be Connolly, Fontaine, which means I'm at best going to be a second line guy, at best going to be a second power play guy. And I'm not going to have 40 points again.
Right. And so the contract that was being offered to him might not have been offered the next year, but Max and Adam this year can have that conversation with their respective teams and say, hey, I'm coming. I know I'm coming. Yeah. Can we delay this another year, right? Like, are either one of these guys going to be in the NHL next year? I think is part of the conversation too, because as ready as they are, and I think we can all agree that they can play in the NHL, are either of them going to be the tipping point? Is Adam Kleber going to help Buffalo win the Stanley Cup? Is Max Plant going to help Detroit make the playoffs? Well, I don't know, but that's the conversation. If then they're saying to either one of them, hey, we think you're going to be in the lineup next year as an every night guy,
right?
That might change things and might push the process along.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember too is now these guys are, because they're drafted, it's different. If Max Plant signs, if Adam Kleber signs, and those teams make the playoffs, they can play for those teams in the playoffs. A free agent that signs at this point will not be eligible to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs for whatever team they sign with because they weren't on that team's reserve roster at the trade deadline.
We had a lot of questions that are similar to Eric's on Blue Sky. So, Eric, you asked about the transfer portal. I'm not skipping over that. I just want to get as many people included in here as possible. Noah on Twitter asked a variation. How much roster turnover are we going to have come opening night? Who do you think are the biggest candidates to sign pro or transfer out? What's the biggest need UMD has to address? Let's look at the possible roster turnover. You got the 5 seniors who are moving on. Adam Guyon has signed, and again, if you read my story when he signed, the Bulldogs were anticipating this.
Yes,
they were. There, if you looked at I have this sheet going, or it kind of projects the rosters, and they had 4 goaltenders initially on there for next season. My sheet did. I don't think the Bulldogs. I think they knew Guyon was leaving. Carl Axelson's coming in. Again, we'll talk more about him in a bit. How much turnover? What are we looking at? You guys think for the transfer portal? We don't know anyone for sure. I don't want to speculate too hard on who may or may not. But history says there's guys heading into the transfer portal. How much turnover? A lot of the turnover, I think, is going to matter more at this point about pro signees than the transfer portal, right?
I tend to agree, and I hate speculating about the portal. I feel like if you start bringing up names, it's like you're trying to push guys out, and it wouldn't be the case. And secondly, I don't want to. I just don't. Yeah, they're going to probably lose a couple of guys, but if they return Kleber, if they return Max Plant, I still think they need, just looking at what they have coming in, I think they need a bigger body to play in the middle in the bottom 6. They lose Kyler Kovich, they lose Kyle Gaffney, both a couple of bigger guys that can win some faceoffs and kill penalties and play kind of those types of roles. I think they need somebody, and I don't know who's going to be out there because the portal doesn't open until the Monday after the Frozen Four.
So thank God they made that. That change.
I know. I hated that there were coaches in the Frozen Four trying to recruit guys for the following season in the portal. I mean, let them get their teams ready for the Frozen Four. We can deal with this all later. So it's hard to say without knowing who's going to be out there. But I feel confident in saying that what I just described, a bigger forward that can play in the bottom 6 in the middle of the rink that can win some faceoffs, there will be 1 or 2 of them out there in the portal. And I think that UMD would be wise to, if they've got a roster spot available, to pursue that.
Yeah, and maybe a bigger guy in the back end. You lose Joey Pierce and Riley Bondarchuk.
Yeah, maybe. I did write that down too.
That might be something they're looking for if it pops out. I don't know if I would.
If you lose Kleber, you're going to.
If you lose Kleber, definitely.
Kleber,
if you don't, then you've got Kleber and Cleveland both back. I don't think you necessily have to worry about that.
No, but it might be nice, right? If somebody pops
you could never have enough of it.
It certainly wouldn't hurt. But I mean,
how does Jake Toll feel about blocking shots?
In terms of who might leave, again, the first question we asked is, how has this year been different than years past? Well, just talking to these guys and being around them for the entire year, and hopefully that's come through in the coverage and what we've said on this podcast. The culture is so much different than it was for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And the guys, if there are guys that leave, those are guys that think, hey, I might not fit in the lineup. And I might go, I might be a bottom 6 guy here, but if I go to this program, I think maybe I could be a top 6 guy if you're talking about a forward, or get more playing time, or, be closer to home, or whatever it is. I don't think you're going to see the exodus that we did certainly last year.
No.
Where some of the guys that we expected to be really big pieces of this year's team leaving for, they all have their own reasons, but it seemed to be a really big kind of divide in that locker room. I don't think you're going to see that. You might see a couple guys who think grass might be greener on the other side.
Oh, they might think they're a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, and maybe they're right. Sometimes there are times the transfer portal is a really good thing. And this might be, for these couple guys that might leave, this might be one of those times where it's like, it's good for these guys to have an option to go somewhere where they can be happy and play a couple years in a bigger role or with a different backdrop.
I've said it. You get 4 years of this.
Yeah. It's not going to be like last year, though.
No, you get 4 years, and if what you're doing isn't working, I mean, we see coaches all the time just up and leave. They've got years left on their contracts. What's the difference? Why are we pinning these players down and making them stay where it clearly isn't working for them or the team that they're on?
I know we're focused on the men's team here, but I feel like people didn't read past the headline that Matt wrote when Grace Sedura transferred to Northeastern.
Well, I actually didn't get a chance to write a story. I just sent out blue sky.
Oh, it was just okay. Well, maybe
on that, I was busy with the men in the postseason and such. But yeah,
she transferred though because she's pursuing academic a master's degree,
right?
And a lot of people saw this name, and maybe there's more to it, But there's certainly like a reason behind. You read into that, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. But I just think there's this negative perception of the transfer portal, and I get it. I understand.
That's why before we came down here to record, I bumped the story Matt wrote about the 4 guys that went in the portal for the UMD men last year after it opened up before the Frozen Four, because that story came out a year ago, the day we're recording, April 2nd. And the comments from people, I'm like, calm down. And first off, there's somebody in there called for a coaching change. This guy doesn't get it. And I'm like, well, that one is like milk in the hot sun.
Well, and I mean, when you talk about this year versus last year, and we talked about this earlier, is the only thing I can ever ask, and we've experienced this the last couple of years, is give me 26 guys who want to be here, who want to work hard. And at the end of the year, I feel either really, really, really good because they all won it and it was fun to follow them along the way, or like I did this year where I feel like
we got something
like
here.
You got hit by a truck because these guys didn't get to the end goal.
But at the same time, you feel like you got something.
If any of those guys that didn't want to be here were forced to be here because the old rules were still in place, then maybe they don't even make the NCAA tournament because they're not together in it. This group was together. And so if there's some guys who aren't feeling it, then they should go to where they are. So.
Yeah. So there's 5 women in the transfer portal right now. Same thing. There's opened after the Frozen Four. Sophia Villanueva, I think that was an obvious, I think everyone
for
was
sure.
Go Sophia, go find a place to play. And she did. She found a place at Bemidji State right away. She wasn't going to play at UMD behind Eve Gascon for another year. And then there's another French-Canadian goalie that's coming in as well. Camden Davis is in the portal. That was an interesting one. She's heading to Northeastern. And then Grace Sedura, I don't know the full terms, just from what I heard was she told us that she was graduating either in the spring or summer here, hoping to get into a very specific graduate school at UMD. It appears she didn't get one of the few spots to that and is now going to Northeastern to get that degree and get that master's. So like it's a good, and she would have been able to do even without this current portal era. She graduated, she'd be able to do this.
But that's not indicative of a culture problem.
No, I don't think
the women's
so.
program.
No,
she wanted to go do school. She might have been a captain next year. If
I mean, it's a loss. Don't get me wrong, but she is not. She would have been able to transfer either way as a graduate transfer. And then there's 2 freshmen who hit the portal, obviously looking for more playing time. So there's that for the men. Again, the portal won't open yet until after the Frozen Four. We did get one question from John on Twitter. Any possibility on Daniel Schlein transferring? Feel like his role diminished further into the postseason. Love his game, but you could see him wanting more opportunity. I mean, if there is a guy that's crossed my mind, does he go into the portal? Maybe it's Daniel Schlein. His older brother did transfer
twice.
One
of those times. He decommitted from his initial.
He committed really, really young.
Yeah, and I think he decommitted from that to go to UConn, then went in the portal to go to Northern Michigan, then went in the portal to go to Arizona State.
So I don't know if that'll influence Daniel Schlein. I hope he sticks around because I think he's a really key piece for Scott Sandelin. We had him on the podcast here. Zach, you weren't able to make that episode, but I thought we had a really good conversation with Daniel. I'm wondering if John listened to that episode. You could tell this has been a tough year for him, and part of that is because Scott Sandelin and the staff, they asked a lot of Daniel Schlein. Like, he's a really smart player. I think that came across on the podcast. They put him into a lot of really tough situations. He probably had to play larger role than any of the the freshman. They had him out there from the start, penalty killing. They tried to get him at center early on, played him a lot at center throughout the season, asked him to center a pretty crazy freshman line to start there. When you talk about puck protection, those guys struggled, even though, man, I loved watching. Who was at the start there? Ryan Zaremba, Hunter Anderson, and Daniel Schlane. Yeah, those guys turned the puck over, but man, they were fun to watch, especially in Alaska. He had a lot of responsibility thrown on him, maybe more than you would have liked for a freshman. Could he? I don't know. I don't know what kind of advice he's getting, and that's something we don't factor in when we're talking about transfer portal guys. Like, some guys get bad advice. Look, we'll say Clayton Knapp right here. Like, that was a guy that we all thought was coming back, and then late in the portal period, he was gone, and it sounded like he probably got some bad advice. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him back in the portal again this year after a tough year at Lindenwood, which was like the only goaltending spot left by the time he got committed to Michigan Tech and then dumped by Michigan Tech.
That's the coaching change there, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a buyer beware in the portal too. Luke Johnson's another guy who bounced around college hockey after entering the portal. Like, I hope after a few years, everyone does their homework. Anthony Mangini, great story going back to North Dakota, but he didn't play in the playoffs. We haven't seen him yet. And it doesn't sound like, unless there's an injury in the bye week here, that he's going to play in the Frozen Four.
No, if anything, they might be getting another forward back, which is going to scratch one of the guys that's been playing.
Yeah, like Gino went to North Dakota, and man, they hyped up his arrival, and then he has had less of an opportunity there than he ever would have gotten, that he had or would have gotten had he come back to UMD. So, I don't know. I mean, the one guy that maybe, we talk about Sofia Villanueva going to get another opportunity. Does Ethan Dahlmeyer want to jump back in the portal again to get another starting job? I don't know. I mean, he's looking at probably competing with Carl Axelson for the starting job next year if he comes back.
And I think, again, the portal gives coaches and even fans a chance to really kind of weed out who wants to be here and who wants to compete, because Dahlmeyer was really good when he got his shot when Guyon went to the Olympics, and almost, I thought, could have kept that job from him. I thought if he continued to win, maybe he just never gives the net back. But they lost.
Or at least rotate. You could not have blamed Scott Sandlin for rotating between Guyon and Dahlmeyer. But
they lost, and then Guyon started to play really well, and he kept the net through the duration. And then Schlane, we've talked to Scott multiple times throughout the year. He loves his game when he's on. The problem with him this year, like a lot of the freshmen, was he was inconsistent, right? And there were spurts during games and then spurts during series that he just never really got to what he's really good at. And that inconsistency is expected from freshmen, but those are two guys that, if they're back, that tells me that they're accepting the challenge, right? Because each of them are going to get challenged. Dahlmeyer knows that Axelson is coming in. He knows that he's going to have to earn the net. And that's a guy I want on my team. I want the guy that says, I know who's coming, and I'm going to try and beat him. And I want to play, and he wants to play, and game on. And Schlane is somewhat similar. We know he's not going to be on the top line. Could he be on the second line? Probably. But even if he's on the third or fourth line, he's a guy that the coaching staff is going to challenge over the summer and say, these are the things we want from you to be effective in our lineup. And if he's back, that means he said, you know what? I know I can do better, and I'm going to do better, and I'm going to be a part of this thing going forward. And I want that if he wants it. I
mean, I'll let Danny make his own mind up. I'm not going to get in a whole lot of guesswork, but I think if you look at, it was kind of surprised nobody asked us to drop a line chart for next year. I'm glad they didn't, but I was kind of surprised. But I think there's clearly a spot, 3C for him is available for next season. I do believe that. He's got one of the better shots on the team. He was used as a penalty killer. I think he was good in that role. He just needs to continue to refine not just his body, physical, the strength thing and speed and all that, but just his play without the puck and finding better positions to be in without the puck, so he maybe can be in a spot to make some more plays, because that's the one thing I think was missing when he shot the puck. You could tell he could shoot it, but he wasn't in those positions often enough.
We already kind of started touching on this. MN Vols on Blue Sky. How is goalie going to shake out with the current roster plus the incoming recruits? So this is what the goalie room as of now is going to look like. You got Carl Axelsson from Sweden coming in as a freshman. Cole Sheffield, a.k.a. Gary Sheffield, that Scott Sandlin tried to nickname him, and it didn't stick. And then Ethan Dahlmeyer. Dolly and Axelsson are probably the guys you're looking at battling for that starting job. I would anticipate both of them splitting. Dolly was 5-2 as a starter, .910 save percentage, .233 goals against average. Axelsson has been really good in the USHL right now, and that can be a league that breaks goaltenders. We saw Guyon go to the USHL and struggle and then need basically a season to kind of regain his confidence. But Axelsson, .917 save percentage in 43 games. That's second in the USHL for save percentage. His goals against average, .241, is good for fourth in the league. I was really surprised that Sweden didn't take him to the World Juniors. Now, obviously, everything worked out pretty well for Sweden in the World Juniors. So what do I know? But I think UMD is going to be just fine in goal. This kind of reminds me of when Hunter Miska left early, and you had Deary and Shep battling it out there for the starting job. Now, Axelsson doesn't have college experience. I think that's where you're going to need to lean on Dahlmeyer to start a little bit next year as Axelsson gets acclimated to the college game. But UMD sits pretty well in goal. And hey, if Dahlmeyer leaves or they end up with an opening here or something, they actually have a pretty deep well of goaltenders in AJ Riles, who's in the Western Hockey League right now. He would be the next man up, so to speak.
AJ's having a nice year up there in Penticton, their first year in the Western League. And if you talk about the USHL not being great for goalies, the Western League is even harder on goalies. He's got a .906 with 29 wins and 43 starts. And so I don't want to discount him at all. And Kanan Smith from Duluth Marshall is going to be playing up there next year in the W. He's in the Janesville, having a good year in the North American League this year, but he's going up there next year. And that's another guy that in the pipeline. He's not coming next year, but just keep that name in mind down the line, because I think both these guys have a chance to be pretty good.
If you asked me today who starts night one next year, it's Ethan Dahlmeyer, right?
I think it's Carl Axelsson.
I think that you give the guy that the chance to start game one, but Axelsson will play, right? He'll probably play night two, vice versa.
One of the you're right.
Each guy is going to get a shot, but I just looked because I wanted to make sure Wisconsin, I wasn't wrong about this, but all four teams in the Frozen Four have freshman goalies that they've played through the playoffs. Yeah. And so it's becoming less of a thing. Goalie for, I don't know, decades was that one position where we said, oh, you can't rely on the freshmen. They can't take you that far. But because the junior leagues and now the Canadian leagues are an option too, are becoming so good. These guys are ready, and they've played in big games before they've got here. So it wouldn't surprise me if Axelsson is ready to carry the water. But he's going to have to fight Dahlmeyer for it if Dahlmeyer's back. And I hope he is, because that'll be a fun battle. And like Scott likes to say, a good problem to have. It's
a very good problem to have. And I would argue one we haven't had here for a little while. Not at that level.
So John on Facebook asking a question. I feel like we probably answered this. How confident are you that UMD can keep its core pieces intact? Where do you expect the biggest roster gaps to be filled, from within, freshmen, or the portal? Al Smith on Twitter also asks us, what needs do you see UMD pursuing in the portal? It's tough to tell what UMD will need in the portal. Like I think first starting with John's, like, where are the gaps going to be filled? Freshmen.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of that's going to come from within. You're going to see guys moving up the line chart. And we already kind of saw that, right? With the Arnott and Bibby Shagabe line that was kind of together there for a little bit. And even then it was Ben's Arnott Bibby that took over as the second line. And I think Gaff and Truman Anderson was actually a true third line. They always kind of were a third line all season, not necessarily, an offensive driver or anything like that. It's tough to say what UMD is going to need from the portal without knowing, they have the freshmen right now to replace the guys who are graduating, and even grab some freshmen to replace players that they think are leaving. For instance, they have one more defenseman actually inked for next year than they need. So that either means they think someone is leaving. They anticipate someone going into the portal. That's less so, I think. Or Scott Sandlin is also not afraid to tell a guy, hey, you probably need another year, and we might see one of those freshmen go back to juniors. So
they all can, by the way. Everybody that
every
has
one
signed,
of them can. Yeah.
I think every player that UMD has signed for next year could defer to the following season.
Yeah, the one guy,
they all have eligibility.
Yeah, the defenseman who's not is Carter Murphy. He's the second highest scoring defenseman.
Right.
Or he's the highest. He's where is he right now? He's fifth in the USHL among defensemen. 41 points with 6 goals and 35 assists. He's plus 23.
Yeah.
Which, for some comparison sakes, the leading scoring defenseman in the USHL, Shane Gould of Sioux City. 51 points, but he's minus 26.
Whoa.
Well, go look up. Hey, he's going to
UConn.
You want to have a laugh? Go look up Scotty Perinovich's plus minus numbers in Cedar Rapids when he played there.
Shane's minus 26, even though he got 51 points. Yeah. Murphy's actually the second highest scoring defenseman on his team at Youngstown. Jack Wilson, his D partner. I don't know if they've been D partners all year, because Jack Wilson is only plus 5 and he has 47 points. So there's just some comparisons, plus 23 plus you have 41 points. I think Carter Murphy's coming in next year, and he's a guy we'll watch to maybe make an impact on that blue line, though I think UMD is going to be deep there. I think we already touched on it. UMD's portal needs and what they grab from the portal is entirely going to depend on if they lose anyone either signing early or guys hit the portal here, right?
Yeah, they might need a 50-point scorer or a 6'4" defenseman, depending on any of those hitting the portal. We don't know.
You never know. Although based on the women's portal, the answer is probably no.
The men's portals, but this is the second year in a row for the women's portal where you're looking at the group of kids that are in there, and it's lean. The years of going into the portal, and maybe that's an entire another episode here at some point with the women. When I look at them, that's what makes me scared for teams that want to go all in and rely on the portal. It's not deep.
Yeah, but that might be the natural regression, right? And I think, again, that's why I've toned down my hatred of the portal over the last maybe 2 years, because there are some cautionary tales out there that Matt talked about, and guys and women and men that went into the portal, thought it was this great thing, didn't have a great experience at the new place. And people talk and people pay attention to this stuff. And it's settled down. We'll see how the men's portal is before I really jump on that train. If it's quiet this year and there's no really big splashes, then the portal is doing what it's supposed to do, right?
Yep.
So we'll see. I mean, I don't think you're going to go get a Hobie Baker candidate out of the portal to replace Max if he leaves, but maybe you will.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Mike on Blue Sky asked the question, do you think the 3 Plant brothers will play together on a line next season?
Not if Max turns pro.
Not if Max turns pro. And Max did say on this podcast that at that time, last week when we had him on here, that he was planning on coming back. But
that got picked up everywhere, by the way.
Congratulations. Good job,
I teased that at the end of the. I actually didn't include that answer in the Q&A. I made everyone listen to the podcast to get the answer to
we
that
did.
there. But if Yeah, I think that's part of the agreement, right? I think we've talked about that. If all three of them are back, and Zam is a Pittsburgh Penguins draft pick, but we don't anticipate him signing, even though he went on a heater at the end of the season. He should go to Vegas and just play some craps, because that's how hot he was at the end of the year here. I posted this on Blue Sky. 7-game point streak for Zam to end the season that consisted of 6 goals and 6 assists. He was phenomenal. But yeah, I think if all three of them are here, Scott will put them on a line at some point. They'll definitely, I think, be on the power play together. You'll see that. But it'll be tough to break up Chogs from that top line.
But I think they'll do it. I think you're gonna. I think you're gonna see Plant, and then maybe not all year. Maybe not even for 40 of 42 games or 38 games, whatever it was we saw Plant Shockaby this year. But you're going to see Plant. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be to start. I think Victor, we keep hearing that he's better than both Max and Zam, and I believe the people that are telling me that. But
Max and Zam
and Derek and Bruce and basically the whole family tells me that Victor's the best one. You're gonna be excited when he gets here. And
I've heard the same thing. Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it, because the other two are pretty dang good. But they have to protect the puck. They can't be solely focused on the rink rat creative stuff that makes all the highlight reels. And if they do that, then they'll earn the time to play together more. But he's going to have to try it, because the upside is huge.
He's got Arnott. I know we're going to talk about Hunter Anderson here coming up. I think Shogabay, Arnott, Anderson would be a fantastic second line. I think there's a lot of teams that would kill to have that kind of top 6.
Yeah, let's go. Let's move on to that question. Joe on Twitter, he brought up the emergence of Hunter Anderson, who had an excellent regional. Where does he fit in 2026-27? I think you guys mentioned he's probably, you're looking him with Arnott there maybe as your second line.
I think he's a foundational piece on this team. I think he had a great year.
He was a reason that second power play unit was clicking, I think.
Yeah, his hands, his stick, his shot, elite. And now he's got a chance here this summer to maybe get the feet a little bit to catch up with everything else, because he's got the brain, he's got the hands, he's got the stick, he's got the shot. He just and he can play physical. We saw that even a little bit. He just needs the feet to catch up a little bit with the rest of them, and he's a chance to have a phenomenal career.
Yeah, I love his game at the end of the year, and he did it, and he suffered that injury too, which kind of set him back. But Harper Bentz could fit in there too, and I think maybe Bentz has a better game to be on the third line and an understanding of what his role is on the team, but he's gone up and down the lineup. So, I mean, if it's not Hunter Anderson on the wing, if we're assuming the Plants as line one and then Shogabay, Arnott, it's either Anderson or Bentz at this point.
Yeah, Harper Bentz is a Swiss Army knife. He can play anywhere.
Yeah, and I don't think he cares where he plays. He plays the same way.
Plays the same. The predictability coaches love that.
Richard via the email, what impact did the addition of CHL players have on college hockey this year? Is this impacting the number of U.S. players playing in the NCAA? I did not get a chance to look up the number. I think it's going to take some time for us to find out what impact the CHL will have on the numbers and how it's impacting Americans. I know that's a concern for some people, but CHL, I think, is why I think you have more teams going after CHL players than transfer portal. And I love the way, I know Bob Motzko, and maybe this is part of the reason why he got pushed out, took a lot of flack for the way he didn't attack the CHL hard in its first year open, but neither did Scott Sandelin. And I think he did okay. He was selective. And I think he got one of the better CHL guys in Graydon Seatman. Like that's why I wanted to pull up this question, because it's a chance to highlight Graydon Seatman, who is absolutely phenomenal, especially down the stretch. Him and Brady Cleveland as a D pair were absolutely great. It's almost like UMD had two versions. They had two Cleveland Hansons at the end of the year. And I think Seatman was a huge part of that. He was absolutely phenomenal, and it'll be interesting to see who else UMD is able to get from the CHL. Again, we're seeing a lot of players that used to play BCHL now going to play in the WHL because they don't lose their eligibility.
Yeah.
So
I think college hockey is as good a place as it's ever been. The talent level, the quality of play is as good as it's ever been. That's in part because of the CHL guys that came in this year. And keep in mind, you ask about the impact on American-born players, a lot of these CHL guys are American-born players. I think about Jack Ivankovic, the goalie at Michigan. He's had a phenomenal year, came from the OHL. He's from America. There's a lot of those types of guys that are making. AJ Riles now up in Penticton. Kanan Smith will be right there with them next year. There's a lot of guys now that'll make their way there to play their junior hockey because they know they can keep their college eligibility.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that the teams that are selective, like Scott Sandlin and the Bulldogs, have been more successful with the CHL guys. I was high on Omaha at the start of the year when we did our preseason polling. Obviously, we know how that worked out, but they went heavy on the CHL guys. And on paper, and what you read about these guys, which is why I was high on them, they're really good hockey players. But together as a unit, they struggled, and that might have nothing to do with all of them coming from the CHL, but where these coaches picked and choosed and got the right guy in their system is where we're seeing the CHL make the bigger differences. So I anticipate that will continue here in Duluth.
yeah, UMD has one more CHL or a WHL. Kelowna Rockets defenseman Keith McInnes is scheduled to come in next season. Let's see. Trying to get again to as many of your questions as possible here. Paul Cluzo on Blue Sky. I believe UMD men's hockey will be a top 5 team in the nation next season. Will they win the NCHC league title? I'm guessing he's asking about the regular season title, which the drought continues since 1993. But UMD might be the only program that does not care that it hasn't won it. I mean, it'd be great. It'd be fun at the end of the regular season, but I think North Dakota would love to trade some of those Penrose Cups for some more postseason titles. Do we think UMD is going to be in the NCHC title mix next season, or too early to gauge that because it depends on who's coming back?
We don't know who's coming back yet. We also don't know. We've seen now the Slukinski brothers have left Western Michigan, both signing with LA here as we record.
LA, the war road of California.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Same thing. Exactly. All those beaches up in Warroad, it'll be very familiar for them. No, it's too early to tell. We'll see who signs. We'll see what players these teams all bring in to replace the players they lose. That sign. North Dakota's not going to be immune here. They're going to lose some guys. Their team is too talented not to. It's just that they're still playing right now, so we don't know the answer to this. But I think it's safe to say, unless something drastic happens, that UMD will be in my top 4 going into next season.
Oh yeah.
They'll be in that, and then beyond that, we'll just have to see how it all plays out.
Boy, and I mean, even if you take Max and Adam Kleber off the team, they might.
I still think I might put them in the top 4.
Top 4. I mean, the rest of them are really good. I know those are the 2 that we've talked a lot about, but the rest of the team is really good.
Keep in mind, it's 10 teams next year, so it's actually top 5 that get home ice.
Yeah, and I think when you look at UMD, like say Kleber goes to Buffalo, let's say Max goes to the dumpster fire that is the Detroit Red Wings at the end of the season here. My wife is really down on them right now. People like
she's gonna kill you if you keep bringing it up on the podcast.
Oh no, she is. It's a good thing I did not run into Steve Yzerman or anyone from the I saw them and I kept my distance because my wife would ask me to harass them about how bad the team is doing down the stretch here. But no, I think they have a number 1 defense. Like Ty Hansen's coming back, so you have them. But like say Ty Hansen gets an offer and signs a free agent deal. I mean, Graydon Seatman and Brady Cleveland is a heck of a number 1 D pairing. UMD has a D pairing there that'd be number 1 in a lot of teams. Hunter Anderson, we touched on him. If Max leaves, that's just going to open things up for Hunter Anderson to get more involved. Maybe we see him on the top line with Zam and Shogs or Victor and Zam. Who knows? There are a lot of possibilities. They have a lot of options. Let's see here. Let's get to the question that like 20 of you submitted. We get 20 people asking about who's coming back. Another 20 ask, what does the non-conference schedule look like next year? I'm trying to remember all in my head. Bruce, you know this better.
I do.
Did you actually write it down?
Yeah.
Okay, there you
I
go.
want to know the answer to this too, because
right,
these
so
are the two that pay attention to.
The caveat here is beyond the fact that I'm very confident they open at home against Long Island next season, 2-game series. Beyond that, I don't know the order of these games. Okay, so I make that very clear. But they will have Minnesota at home. They'll have a home and home with Bemidji. They are away to Augustana next season, unless something has changed since the last time that I talked about this.
These are all subject to change,
They could have changed, but the last I heard, that's what was locked in, and then they have the Friendship Four in Belfast.
Yeah, and that question was asked, how is the Friendship Four travel plans shaping up? Specifically, what should fans know and expect if interested in traveling and watching? If you want some insight into Belfast, I went there with the women's team this year. We talked about it extensively in our January 8th episode. That's episode 14 of this season. Go listen to that. There is a website set up, friendship4travel.com. You can go click the Minnesota Duluth section. If you're interested in seeing what the Cara Travel Group has to offer, I traveled with the team. I wasn't on the fan version of that. I was with the UMD women, the team version. It was pretty good. It's expensive. There is some flexibility in there. If you're an experienced traveler who's maybe been to Europe before, or who's just traveled even North America extensively, you can probably save some money by booking your own flights and hotels and stuff. But the Cara Travel Group is worth looking into. So friendship4travel.com. Feel free to reach out to me, mwellens@duluthnews.com, for some insights on Ireland. If you can go, it's a heck of a trip. It's really cool. Definitely one of those once in a lifetime hockey road trips to take if you can make it. Man, this question from PJ on Twitter may require its own podcast. So let's try and be brief because we're running out of time. What can AMSOIL/UMD do to help boost attendance? I hope this season, just the winning and the excitement we saw at the end here, I hope that carries over into next year. I have this spreadsheet that I always got to dig up because I never remember where I save it in my disorganized files, that like tracks attendance and such. And you would have thought this year UMD would take a big jump in attendance as they got better. But what tends to happen is it's the season after they have a good season that the attendance rebounds. So attendance was disappointing a lot of times this year. Some of it is just like games falling on bad dates with breaks and Minnesota State hockey and other things. Guys, what else maybe needs to happen for attendance? Do we even want to go there? Like, It's disappointing. I would note that this isn't a problem just in Duluth. We saw North Dakota only draw, which again, it's a lot of fans, but it's still only 9,000 when they normally draw 12,000 for their semifinal playoff game. Denver had to go to extreme lengths, offering some pretty good deals to get their semifinal sold out. And then they went into the championship right away, offering big deals to get fans there as well. That might be it.
So I did say this, I've had this conversation with some people at UMD privately. I think it might be time to consider lowering your base ticket price a little bit. Not much, because the math tells you if you sell 4,500 tickets at whatever the number is, and you drop it even $5, you got to sell a lot more tickets to make that number. So it's something I said with the league. I said, do you want to make the maximum dollar you can make, or do you want to fill the building? Because it's very likely you won't be able to do both. So you got to pick one. It's easy for us to say we want the building full. It really is, because we're getting in for free. Let's be honest. And we love that, but it's not as easy for them to say that if it's going to cost them money that they are expecting to make to help fund everything else that they're doing, which men's hockey funds a lot of what UMD does. So You gotta be. It's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, and maybe we should do a podcast on this. I mean, at the start of next year. I mean, I know we've talked about it before. I think right at the start when Forrest Carr was hired as the athletic director, we talked to him about this in the podcast. It wasn't the whole show, but we did bring it up, and I've talked with UMD folks, over the years, and it's two different conversations, right? It's attendance versus tickets sold. And I haven't seen the numbers yet for this year, but my guess is, the attendance was down, the tickets sold are still pretty strong because a lot of those are season ticket holders.
Well, the numbers UMD puts out is tickets sold.
Correct.
Announced attendance
is tickets sold. It's tickets distributed, not
it's tickets distributed, not necessarily tickets sold. And that's a practice across the entire industry.
For UMD, tickets sold is the important number.
Right.
Once I sell you the ticket, not that I don't care that you're not in the building, but it's up to you to come to the building. I sold you the ticket, right? And so from a UMD, from a revenue standpoint, it's really tough to say we got to make these wholesale changes when they look around and say 95% of the tickets are sold, but it's deer hunting opener and half the building's not here, or it's spring break, or it's the high school hockey tournament. There's so many other things that people can choose to do with their time. And if they bought the season ticket package or they bought tickets to that weekend's games and don't come, it's hard for me to blame UMD on that. I will take time. I mean, I don't want to get into my ideas for moving the student section and all that because it's a pipe dream. I don't think it's going to ever happen.
I don't either, but I'm with you, but I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah, I would love to see it, but there's a lot of reasons that it won't happen. I'm going to admonish the fans a little bit. And if anybody's listening, don't take it personally, but have a little bit more fun because the people that are there, I get it if the building's 3/4 full, half full, whatever. It's not the same as if it's sold out, but don't wait for the other people to come. Why do all the seats have to be filled for you to cheer and for you to have fun and make noise? And when I went to Denver and I called that semifinal game, Denver and Western Michigan, yes, they sold $10 tickets on a flash sale to get the building full, but those fans were engaged.
Oh, we saw the same thing at the championship.
It was so much fun. And it was so much fun for me because UMD wasn't in it. And at the championship game, obviously you had a vested interest in the game. For me, it was just a great hockey game with great fans. Everybody was on their feet. Every scoring chance, the oohs, the ahs, everybody was engaged in the game. And you don't see the same in Duluth. The energy is flat. And so, make the party fun, and more people want to come to the party. And that part is somewhat on the fans.
And I would also put some of it on UMD. I think game ops have gotten a little stale, which is of the things that I heard from people. That was probably the most common complaint was something related to game ops, maybe getting a little bit on the stale side. And I'll put this on the students as well. The best crowds that we had in terms of engaged, enthusiastic fans all season long may have been the playoff series against St. Cloud State. Not in numbers, but in terms of how engaged they were with what was happening on the ice. The students weren't there. That's not a good thing. That your student-led crowds aren't as good as your no-student crowds. That's on the students. We need them to be more involved, more engaged with what's happening, more involved and engaged with the things that we see from student sections, chirping visiting teams. Learn a little bit about the visiting team when they come in, so you know what you're doing when you walk in the door. And obviously you want to keep it somewhat clean. We don't need to turn into Western Michigan, no offense, but that's what I want to see more of.
Bruce wants to continue to be able to use his crowd mic.
I do want to be able to use.
Unlike Western.
Hey, Dylan's invested a lot in those ice mics. They're great. We don't need to have to turn them off.
Yeah, maybe this is Dylan's fault for making the. You know what? The building used to be full when Zach banned HD broadcasts on my 9.
I was hiding our equipment. That's
Zach was that's it's all Zach's fault. He brought out the HD equipment. If Zach could hide the HD equipment and make these broadcasts worse, more people would show up. Okay, final thoughts on this topic.
I was just going to jump on Bruce's point is that if the students show up and are having fun, and again, this is more to my mother. She doesn't listen to the podcast, but that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be in college and have fun. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's lines we can't cross. We've dealt with that in the past, but they're supposed to show up and be fun and be loud and just remember what it was like, whether it's little kids or the college kids or whatever. remember what it was like when you were that age and wanted to just go out on a Friday, Saturday night and have fun.
Yep.
And don't admonish them. Don't, get in their way. These games are largely for them, and just piggyback on their fun. There's too much fun police, I think, inside.
I don't disagree with you.
All right, we're up against the clock here, so we are going to have to wrap up season 8 of the Bulldog Insider Podcast there. We'll see how the off season evolves for the Bulldogs. I know in the past we've waited a couple weeks to do this episode to see how things play out. We're trying to jump on things again right after the season because you all had a lot of questions. A tremendous thank you to everyone who listens to this podcast, who comes up to me regularly and thanks me for doing this, bringing on the guests, and really you're the reason we keep doing this. Man, for 8 seasons now, Zach and I have been doing this podcast. And thank you, Bruce, for coming on when we can't find anyone else.
I'm the break glass option. I was telling somebody at the station today. I said I'm the guy that when they can't find a guest, they break the glass and they pull me in.
Best ability is availability.
Exactly. I'm glad to be here whenever you guys need me, and I appreciate what you guys do as well because I'm a regular listener, and in fact, a lot of the topics I talked about with the players I steal from you guys, so it's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone that listens to this podcast. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the Duluth News Tribune. That helps support this podcast. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage throughout the season, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. If you're not a subscriber, the off season's a great time to subscribe because we end up with a lot of really good, unique content over there. For more episodes of the Bulldog Insider Podcast, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, subscribe, and rate us. Go check out the episodes you may have missed throughout the season. Go listen to those women's episodes that we do if you're one of those listeners that skips over those. I know we didn't talk a lot about the women's team today. Maybe that's a bonus episode down the road here. We haven't had a chance to talk with Coach Laura Schuler yet after their season ended. So to be honest, we don't have a ton of insight on them right now, but again, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for the questions you all bombard us with when we do put the call out for these episodes. We really appreciate it. Again, thanks to Zach from My9 Sports for coming on and doing this for 8 years. Thank you, Bruce Ciskie from KDAL, and we will catch you all next season.